Alright folks, welcome back to Dark Angle, the place where we shine a light on the darkest corners of the most powerful people in the world. Today, we're diving into a story that's been buried under layers of glamour, money, and political drama. The story of Donald Trump, underage girls, and a modeling empire that wasn't just about beauty. It was about power, access, and control. And if you thought Epstein was the only dark chapter in Trump's past, think again. Because today, we're going back to the 90s, to a time when Trump wasn't just building towers, he was building his own private playground, and the girls, they were barely old enough to drive. So if you're new here, hit that subscribe button, smash like, drop a comment, and share this with your squad, because this one, it's going to leave you speechless. Alright, let's start with the basics. You know Donald Trump, the guy who once said he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and still get away with it. Well, turns out he didn't have to shoot anyone. He just had to host a beauty pageant. Back in 1991, Trump was throwing one of his glamorous, over-the-top events, a beauty pageant called Look of the Year. Now, this wasn't just any pageant. This was run in partnership with John Casablancas, the founder of Elite Model Management. And Casablancas, dude had a very shady reputation. He died in 2013, but before that, he was linked to a lot of disturbing stuff, including affairs with underage girls, and even sexual assault allegations. This guy called underage models women children, yet seriously, that's not a cute nickname. That's a red flag the size of the Empire State Building. Now picture this, it's 1991. A private yacht named the Spirit of New York is cruising near the Statue of Liberty. Older men, some in suits, some balding, some with Trump himself, on board. A bunch of teenage girls, some as young as 14 years old, in miniskirts, evening dresses, barely anything. And Trump would sit there, look them up and down, and decide if they make it to the next round, dancing. Trump didn't just do this once. He did this a lot, touching, pressing up against these girls, surrounding them, they're naked, half-dressed, whatever, and it's part of the job. And what were they doing? One guy even wrapped his arms around two underage models and smiled for the camera, like it was a normal Friday night. Trump was there. He wasn't just watching, he was judging. Literally, these girls would walk into a room, in bathing suits. Sounds creepy. It is creepy, but guess what? He even bragged about it on Howard Stern. He said, "As the owner of the pageant, I can walk backstage and inspect the girls." He called it inspecting. The rest of us call it inappropriate, creepy, and borderline illegal. And it's not just Trump S-words we have to go by. It's the girls themselves. Miss North Carolina 2006 came forward and said she felt very dirty when Trump walked up and down the line of contestants, checking them out like meat at a butcher shop. You're running a beauty pageant or a weight loss boot camp. Miss Arizona 2001. She said Trump walked into the dressing room when girls were changing, topless, naked, completely vulnerable, and no one could say anything. Why? Because he owned the pageant. He had all the power. And no one could do a damn thing about it. Let's not forget Alicia Machado, Miss Universe 1996. Trump publicly called her Miss Piggy because she gained a little weight. He humiliated her on national TV, and when she tried to defend herself, he kept laughing about it. Trump, this is the same guy who said, "Some people when they have pressure don't eat. Some people eat too much, like me," and even admitted he watched her infamous sex tape, which her wife showed him. Like what? And if that's not bad enough, Trump was buddies with John Casablancas for 4 years. They worked together. They partied together. Casablancas married a 17-year-old girl from one of these pageants, and Trump, he was cool with it. And he used that power in ways that were inappropriate, humiliating, and in some cases, possibly illegal. In fact, Trump even said in interviews that he was friends with Casablancas and respected him as a businessman. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that was the 90s, People were different back then, but wait for this. In 2016, during the presidential election, Trump's past came back to haunt him. Audio surfaced of him bragging about grabbing women by their genitals, and people were shocked. But if you look back at his history with these beauty pageants, it wasn't a surprise at all. It was just the tip of the iceberg, but how deep does it go? And get this, Trump even talked about Lindsay Lohan on Howard Stern when she was like 17 or 18. He said she was hot, and joked about how deeply troubled women are great in bed. And when it came to Paris Hilton, whom he knew since she was 12 years old, he said she was flawless. Yeah, that's a sentence I never thought I'd say. So what's the takeaway here? Trump wasn't just some businessman who got into politics. He built an empire that gave him access to young, vulnerable women. Was he Epstein-level evil? Maybe not, but he definitely played in the same playground. And now, with the release of the Epstein files and more people digging into Trump's past, this isn't just a story from the 90s. It's a story that's still relevant today. Let's go deeper. You might be thinking, okay, Trump had a weird relationship with beauty pageants. Well, let me tell you, it goes deeper than you think. First, let's talk about how these pageants were structured. They weren't just competitions. They were full weekends of events, dinners, after-parties, VIP meet and greets, and private gatherings. Girls as young as 14 were expected to attend all of them. And guess who was usually there? Trump and his friends. These weren't just random guys off the street. We're talking about powerful men, businessmen, politicians, and even celebrities. And these girls, they were told this was part of the experience, that they needed to be professional, that they needed to network, but in reality, it was a system designed to exploit. And the worst part, there was no accountability. If a girl said something, she was labeled difficult. If she complained, she was told to move on, and if she tried to speak out publicly, she was silenced, with money, threats, or both. Let's also not forget that Trump used to own Miss USA, Miss Universe, and Miss Teen USA for almost 2 decades. That means for 20 years, he had full control over these pageants, who got in, who got backstage, who got judged, and who got attention, and he used that power to his advantage. In fact, one of the things that shocked people the most was when Trump admitted, on audio, that he used to walk backstage while girls were getting dressed. He said it was part of his job. He called it inspection. But what kind of inspection requires you to walk into a female dressing room filled with half-naked teenage girls? And again, this wasn't just a one-time thing. This was a pattern. And the pattern was clear. Power. Like we were there to be looked at, not to be respected. Access. Control. You couldn't speak up. If you did, you'd be blacklisted. And the girls, they were just pawns in a game. They didn't even know they were playing. Back in 2020, The Guardian published a detailed report on the Elite Look of the Year competition, the same one Trump was involved in. They interviewed former contestants, industry insiders, and even some of the staff who worked at the events. And what they found was shocking. I go backstage before a show and everyone's getting dressed and ready. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant. Therefore, I'm inspecting. I want to make sure everything is good. Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? And you see these incredible looking women, and so I sort of get away with things. They uncovered allegations of sexual harassment, exploitation, inappropriate relationships with underage models, and in some cases, rape. The report described a culture where young girls aged 14 to 18 were exposed to older men in powerful positions, often at events where alcohol was served to minors and no one was watching. And guess who was at the center of it all? Trump and Casablancas. One former contestant said, "It felt like we were being treated like objects." Another one said, "You couldn't say no." And the worst part, no one was held accountable. Not then, and not even now. Let's hear it straight from Trump. In 2005, he was on Howard Stern's show, and he said, As the owner of the pageant, it's your obligation to do that. Now, let me ask you, when was the last time you heard of a male pageant owner walking into a female dressing room unannounced? Exactly. It's not normal. It's not okay. And yet, Trump said it like it was just part of the job. All right. What did you think about this one? Was this your first time hearing about Trump's connection with Casablancas? Or were you already familiar with the shady side of his beauty pageant days? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear from you. And if you found this video interesting, hit that subscribe button, smash like, and share it with someone who needs to see this. We're just getting started with Dark Angle, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next.